I am an actor, an architect. I co-host a podcast titled The Due Parenting Podcast, my beautiful wife, Linda Ibrahim Suleiman. And basically, it's about our experiences as newish parents, what we're going through, what we're learning on the job, how nobody told us what we needed to know. And, we just like to share what we're learning while also learning from our friends who come on the show because they have more experience than we do. When you have time, please check it out. Yes, that's the shameless plug that I just put into this. Thank you for joining us. I hope that everyone is well. Most importantly, I am a dad. So one of the reasons why I'm excited about this afternoon is because this webinar caters to something that I used to be worried about it until a couple of months ago when I met a couple of people from FBN Quest, and so far the conversations have been very reassuring, and I'm glad that I can be part of this so that we can share the things that we know while also learning a few more things. Thank you for taking time out to attend this edition of Leading Conversations with FBN Quest. So the theme of today's session is investing and planning towards your child's or your children's future. What you need to know, the things that you need to be prepared for. We intend to provide you with insights on what you need to know when it comes to planning and investing towards your child or children's futures. Now, while we're waiting for more people to hop on, oh, great, wow, thanks, guys. While we wait for more people to show up, I'd like to give a very brief background about the series. Leading Conversations with FBN Quest is a webinar series which is created to bring you market, industry, and consumer insights and analysis that are crucial for individual and corporate success. The series features the leading professionals of FBN Quest, as well as other industry experts with experience in corporate and private investment management, wealth preservation, financial advisory, and other areas of interest, right? We hope to open your mind to a world of opportunities through these sessions, and we very much look forward to engaging with you. So today's session should run for an hour, and the speakers will see. First of all, I just want to say something real quick about today's speakers. Let me see. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm hoping everyone. Sorry, 1 second. Can everyone see me? Okay. All right, cool. So I'm sorry, I think for a moment my video kind of went off. Okay, so I just want to say real quick, I just want to say something really quick about today's speakers. I've consulted with these great minds recently, and I would say that first of all, you know how when there's a football team, and then your front three are like world class. That's what we have to teach. These guys are like Real Madrid's front three, or let's say Liverpool. You understand? Top tier. And I would like to say categorically that they're funny, they're interesting, they're well versed, and they're actually all very good looking. Which, hey, we're seeing them, we're listening to them, we're learning from them. It's nice to have some, So yeah, thank you so much to our speakers for joining us. So I'll start off by introducing them by going with Anne Oragu, and she's the head of affluent at FBN Quest. She consequently leads the sales team responsible for business development, client acquisition, and relationship management, both directly and via various partner channels. She has over 18 years. 18 years. That's a full-grown adult, by the way. She has over 18 years of work experience serving in key positions across reputable financial institutions in Nigeria. Anne Oragu also holds an MBA in business administration from the University of Hull in the United Kingdom. She also acquired a professional marketing qualification from the Chartered Institute of Marketing, United Kingdom, as well as a strategic marketing management certificate from Harvard Business School. Please, a virtual round of applause for Anne. Next up, we have Laura Fisayo Kolawole. She is the head of equities and alternative assets portfolio management at FBN Quest, asset management. She is responsible for the investment. She is responsible for the investment strategy and solutions development within the multi-asset portfolio management team, leading a diverse team of portfolio managers and product developers. Laura specializes in UK equities, working within the team responsible for managing the UK equity portfolio for the investment management client funds. Laura was also part of a team that executed global multi-asset portfolios with over $1.5 billion in assets under management. Wonderful. That is impressive. Now, to the gentleman here, Rotimi Obende is a member of the FBN Quest Trustees team and is responsible for strategy development at FBN Quest Trustees. Rotimi has extensive experience in strategy development, research, financial analysis, financial planning, and accounting. He is a fellow with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, FCA, and also holds a certificate in personal financing planning with the University of Lagos. Rotimi was a group accountant with the Institute of Financial Planning and a facilitator with the Institute of Financial Planning. Rotimi has facilitated many courses on finance and accounting and in personal financial planning. He is currently pursuing a master's program with the University of South Wales. Yes, please, ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause, virtual of course, for our speakers for today's webinar. Okay, so hashtag moving on. Before we go into our fireside chat with our overqualified speakers, I would just like to inform our participants that, we're all here to learn. So please note that there will be a Q&A session towards the end of today's webinar. So you can send your questions via the chat room so that we can respond to them. Please note that, we may have quite a number of questions. So what I'll try and do is I'll try and aggregate the questions that are similar, and then I'll ask our panelists these questions in an aggregated format. It would be nice if you can include, your name, what you do, the number of children that you have, and how old they are, because these details would, help our panelists in, helping us figure it out as we go, which is what I am here for, to figure it out as we go. All right, so to get everybody all limbered up and ready to go, let's just warm up a little. We would be taking our first poll. We'll have two polls today. So we'll take the first one. Let's see. All right, so feel free to pick the option that best describes your greatest concern. So poll one says, my greatest concern for my child's future is, first option, not having enough money for the type of school I want. Second option is nothing, I fool ground. And the third option is, I do not know where to start. All right. Let's go with this game. Okay. So let's see. So as you can see from our poll results, it says that the overwhelming result here is that most of us do not have enough money for the type of school that we want to send our kids to. And I'm glad that this is the response because, it is what it is. The economy is where it is, and the citizenry is, we go do all right. We go do all right. This is one of the reasons why we're here, to figure it out so that we can plan sufficiently and be able to sort things out for our children when the time arrives. Okay, so panelists, how you guys doing today? Good afternoon. Laura, Anne, Rotimi, everyone good?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
All good, thank you.
Good to see everyone.
Ibrahim.
Good afternoon, Rotimi. Did you hear Rotimi? Good afternoon, Brian. Come on. I love it. That's my new voice now. That's the voice I'm going to be using throughout the rest of this. So concerning the rest of this webinar, that's how I'm going to be speaking. So I can sound like Rotimi. Come on. So it's good to have you guys. I'm so grateful for the information that you guys have already shared with me, the insights, everything that you have. I mean, it just feels like in such a little amount of time, a very brief conversation, I've actually learned quite a few things that have helped me relax a little. I'm still a bit worried about the future financially for my son, but it's good to know that, there are capable hands here. So obviously, there are lots of questions that, most people have concerning where they're going, what they would like to do on their way there, how they would like to get there, as pertaining their children, the future. We all worry about the future, but then it becomes even harder when you're not worried about just your future, but the future of someone else that you brought here without their consent. So that added burden, this is a great way for us to try and, relieve it as much as possible. So first things first, what does one have to do when planning or investing for their children's future? What are the basics? I feel like, this is open to all the panelists. I feel like anyone who wants to take this away, please go ahead.
All right. So, I think I'll just jump right in. When I think about investing for children, I think really for everybody, the very first thing is that planning is key to success. So it's always best when you're not just winging it, but when you're taking time to make a plan. And especially for something like education, it's very expensive, to be honest. And we all know that the rate at which the price of school fees, etc., goes up, it's generally much faster than general inflation. So to be honest, it's something that's worth taking very, very seriously. It's important to start early. If you can, you should start really at birth or, even before birth if you're a really good planner. But if you haven't started, I think the next best time to start is today. So even if you haven't started and, your kids are a little bit, bigger than, say, a 1 or a 0-year-old child, you can still start today because, to be honest, education is a long-term endeavor. For most children, it's maybe 15 to 20 years from start to finish. And so it really is a long time to think, to think and to plan. The other thing I would say is it's good to have an idea of the kind of schools or the kind of education you want to give your children. Obviously, you may not know, you may not necessarily say, I want my child to go to school A, B, C, D, or, but you must have an idea of the kind of schools and really how much your dreams will cost you, at least based on the current cost of education today. And for me, the most important thing is that you have to understand that, there are near-term and there are future expenses, and we must all not feel pressured to make all the money available today. Because sometimes when people think about how much it costs to educate, you hear, to educate their children, you hear maybe like university fees, some large amount of money, secondary school, some other big amount of money. And then we all get overwhelmed. You say, I have 2, 3, 4 children. And then you get overwhelmed when you start thinking of the fees. And then at that point, you get paralyzed and you can't do anything else. I think the most important thing is you don't have to have all the money available today. The aim is to create a comfortable payment plan that allows you reach your goal. So you must know your goal. So reach your goal, but really reach it at a pace that is measured, that is comfortable for you. You don't have to sort of make the full amount of money available today just because you want your child to go to the best schools. And that's really what we're talking about here. And for me, that's what I'd say, as a good starting point, those basics.
All right. Thank you so much. Anne?
Yes, I think I'd like to add a few comments to what Laura has said. One of the things she spoke about is the fact that school fees continue to rise. And so you sort of have to have a set out review period to evaluate the situation of your goal, which is the fees you're going to pay for your kids, and to also evaluate your situation Sometimes we're lucky, we get promotions, we get into higher paying jobs, we get additional income sources from various things. Some people have side hustles, whatever it is. It's important to review regularly and take account of what you're earning now compared to when you started. Because normally when you're starting, you just want to begin the process. And so reviewing regularly is very important. Another thing I'd say is automating your contribution is something that could really, really help you, because I've tried both ways. I sort of said, okay, I'll spend when I earn my salary or my income, whatever source, I'd spend what's funds on what I need to, and then what's left would be put into savings. That just never works, because needs are infinite. And so if you have, for instance, a direct debit to your account for the day that you earn your salary, and so as soon as the money comes in, it's taking it out. So in your mind, that money isn't even there. I think that's a very good approach to doing it, and you find that you'd have to adjust to what's left, right? And it's normally better if where you're investing is it's an account or an investment where you don't go to on a regular basis. So I'd say, yeah. And then the last thing I'd say is, well, when the kids are old enough, which, I mean, kids are so smart now. So, I mean, that could be anything from 3 years old. Start to engage them. Speak to them about, the fact that education is important. Talk to them at their own level, what is age appropriate, about, academics, taking it seriously, the fact that you're working hard to contribute towards that. And that's a practice I've done with my kids. And I find that sometimes they're willing to compromise when they remember that there's a big goal. So, I mean, kids want every new toy that comes out and every new gadget. And so sometimes, you have to remind them that we could get this for you, but remember that we're putting funds towards something else that's, very important as well. And as they grow, they start to appreciate it even more. And so if you can use those approaches, in addition to, the very important nuggets Laura has shared, I think you'd be in a good place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What you highlighted about the fact that school fees, and what Laura also said, that these things don't come down. They're constantly they cost more and more over time. They don't ever get slashed or anything. So yeah, it's something that builds anxiety for me. Thank you for helping with that. Rotimi, do you have anything you'd like to add?
So Laura and spoken about the planning aspect. So in terms of the second leg of your question, which is then the investing part, I would say that there are 3 basic elements I'd normally advise people on. Number 1 is that you need to know your investment. Number 2, you need to know yourself. And number 3, you need to know the market. So they've talked about the fact that school fees are on the rise on an annual basis. In Nigeria, you're looking at a 10% increase on an annual basis. Abroad, you're looking, if you just take tuition alone, anything around 5 to 7%. So it's then important that when you want to invest, my advice would be that you don't have to invest in things that you do not know. Do not start to think that because you want to be able to send your kids abroad, you now look for schemes that are offering you investment returns that are not possible anywhere in the world. So please know yourself, know your investments, and know the markets that you want to start to invest for your children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So key takeaway there is to know what you're doing. Don't just go willy-nilly trying to get really large, quick returns, because that's high risk. Okay, so let's assume that I am a parent with no financial background, or I don't have any know-how, and I wanted to come up with a plan, which I wanted to implement from like tomorrow. What will be a good starting point for my financial journey?
Okay, so I think I'd like to start off on that one. I think the most important thing to begin with, especially because this question is talking about someone who is not very finance savvy, is to understand your finances. I think that was the first, it was when I started to understand my finances that I really began to use my money effectively. And so we have a lot of situations where, people just earn money and at the end of the day, they are broke and they really can't explain what their monies are going into. So while it might seem like a tedious process initially, you actually need to track your expenses. There are various ways. Luckily now there are apps, even free ones for that matter, that you can link to your SMS messages from your bank and all that can help you to track what you're spending monies on. But for those who don't trust such things, because I know not everybody is happy to try those out, you can even use an Excel sheet. And the idea is you don't have to do it forever. If you do it for a couple of months, you start to establish a trend and you see, look, what am I spending more of my money on? Do I really need to spend this much money on these? Where can I make savings from? And so, I mean, that's the very first stage, because if you can't identify the monies you're going to put into your goals, then, it's not even going to start off. So the first thing is please start to understand what you can put together. And, it still takes a village to raise a child. So if you have grandparents that still have a decent amount of monies, if your uncles, aunties, people who love these kids, you could let them know that, look, I've put an investment aside for this child's education. So sometimes if you're thinking of gift ideas for their birthday, for Christmas, please, put the funds in there. I'm accountable. You can check to see that I'm not spending it on jewelry or whatever. But, let's work together and try to get the best for the child. And so that's the first thing to do. So identify the monies that you're putting in. And then the second thing is to preferably have a targeted account for education if it's possible. And we have quite a few products in FBN Quest that you can use. We have the money market fund. You can invest with as little as 5,000 naira. And so, we're not talking to only people who are extremely wealthy here. We're saying everybody can begin to put monies aside. We have the bond fund. And for those of you who want to invest in dollars as well towards the future, we have the dollar fund and you can start investing with $1,000. So have targeted accounts, not your regular everyday account that you're taking monies in and out of. And for those sorts of accounts, I try not to have instant withdrawal access to them. If there's an app, I wouldn't ask to be able to redeem from it. I just want to get my statements and see from time to time. So the further away you are from that account, the more likely you are to achieve your goal. And so if you can do that as well, that'd be a good way to start. Then just begin, right? Start to put monies aside. The interesting thing is, when you start to see the money's growing, no matter how little you're putting, and you start to see your returns on them. I mean, we have the bond fund that give you currently over 10%. When you start to see those sorts of things happening, you get more encouraged and you'll be willing to put more funds into that. And so please understand your funds, have a targeted account, and begin the process. Those are the words I'd share for now. And if there are more questions, I'm sure we'll address them as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Laura, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think for me, the only thing I would add, and thank you so much, Anne, for that, I'd just extend something that, Anne talked about, which was around investing, to say that it's also helpful if you work with people like Anne, actually, to create education plans for yourself, where you can almost map out, based on the kind of schools that you want your child to go to, the school fees for the next 10, 15 years for primary, secondary, maybe even university. So you can almost see also what, visualize your goal. I think at least it helps me. Maybe, I don't know if everyone's like me, but kind of knowing where I'm going and how much I need to raise helps me be serious about putting money aside. Staying focused, yes. Because sometimes, if you don't really have an idea, if you say to yourself, actually, I need, to generate fees of X million or X thousands, whatever it is, for the next 15 years, and that comes to an amount of, say, 100 million or 50 million, just putting that plan together, it really put the fire in my own bones and saying, look, this is something that we need to really focus on seriously. So on the one hand, it's creating that investment plan. It's creating the direct debit that Anne spoke about much earlier. But also, if you then have an idea that, look, this whole educating this child will cost me 25 million naira, 30 million, 50. Maybe before you thought that you could only put away 50,000 a month or 10,000 a month. But then when you see how much you need to raise on the other side, you may be inspired to find a much larger amount per month. And that just helps to really frame the conversation when you know where you're going and what it will cost you to get there. So I think creating that detailed plan, putting those numbers together where you understand potentially how much it will cost you, it would really help focus the mind and frankly help you put more money aside than perhaps what you'd have done if it was just a nice to have.
I like that. That actually does make sense. Because speaking personally, I realized that if I do not have, I'm easily sidetracked by, the many different things that I'm excited about and all of that. So if I do not have a laid down plan, and a way to get there, it is very easy to just be like, oh, this person asked, this person needs help, this person, this other thing came up. Oh, there's this opportunity to go on vacation, and there's a discount, maybe let's go, that kind of thing, which is nice. But then knowing that there's a plan, it's easier to be like, this would have been nice, but this in the future will be nicer. So thank you so much for that, Laura. And thank you, Anne. So Rotimi, based on your interactions with individuals over the years, what can you say are the most common misconceptions that people have, about planning financially for the future of children?
Okay, so I believe all of us fall into this category. First thing is that we think that buying a house and acquiring properties are more important than planning for the education of our children. And so I'll say that's one misconception. Number two is that a lot of people would just tell themselves that my brother, my uncle, my sister, my cousin will take over that responsibility if something were to happen to me. And so instead of planning, we then sidetrack that for some other things, not knowing that these people will first of all take care of themselves and their children before they think about yours. I would also say another misconception is the fact that we think that we'll continue to make as much money that we currently make, and so we never put plans to place. We never tend to start to save actively for our children. These are some of the misconceptions that I find when we talk to people, and generally they just believe that yes, all of these things would fall into place, not knowing that if they put the plan in place today, then they are able to overcome a lot of the issues that we'll still address as we get into this webinar proper.
Thank you, Rotimi, and thank you for I feel attacked. To be honest, let me just be honest, because no jokes, one of the most important conversations that myself and Linda are having, is we need to buy a house. But since Kion arrived, that conversation is now shifting. But maybe it will shift full tilt this time. So seeing as we just had. Our son is almost 2, so we're still kind of new in the race. Still early days for us, sort of. What is the best time to get started on saving, especially for tertiary, education? Because in my mind, that's like the big one. That's like the one that everybody's flushing their life savings and investments down that particular pipe, because they're trying to make sure that their children get the best possible tertiary education. And I feel like, this question, I feel like you should help me out with this one.
Okay. I'm happy that you're asking this question now that your child is 2, because the truth is the best time to start to invest towards their tertiary education is now. Over the years, the value of tertiary education has multiplied, in ways that we never imagined it would. When I look at the school fees my parents paid to educate me, and I look compared to what I'm paying now, it is ridiculous. And so using ourselves as an example, we need to realize that the sooner we start, the more likely we are to achieve what we want to achieve. And for kids who are young now, they could start to show some of their potential, but it's early days yet for some of us. And so you have no idea of what ultimately tertiary education you're going to need to send them to. So it's best to be equipped for whatever situation. If you find that you've overinvested, fantastic. You can then use the funds for other things, right? So the best time to start is now. One of the reasons is, the general principle of compounding. You earn interest and you continue to earn interest on the interest that you've earned over the years. And by the time the child is going to school, you're not having a heart attack about what's going on. And Rotimi mentioned the fact that is very true. We hope it doesn't happen, but no one really knows if they are going to continue to earn in the way that they used to, right? And so when you have investments that are working for you, such that if you're not earning at all, or if you're earning less, the monies, the interest, the returns you're getting from your investments are able to cover up for all you need to do and make you still achieve your plans, you're much better. So I'd say the best time to start is now. If your child is 2, the best time is now. If your child is 12, the best time is now. If your child is 16, the best time is now. So start this week, guys. Let's not waste time. I've spoken about products that you can earn over 10%. I've spoken of products you can start with just 5,000 naira. 5,000 naira, I'm not even sure you can get the large pizza for that amount, So just think about diverting the funds, some of the funds that you're using for other things, into your child's education. I think it is so important to begin now. Thank you.
Thank you. And so overwhelmingly, the answer to that is now. Regardless of what age your child is and what stage in their education they're at, the best time is now. Because no jokes, what you said earlier about how much our parents paid for our education years ago, and how much people are having to pay today. I think if you compound everything that my parents spent on my education, I studied architecture in Ibrahim, so I went to Federal University. I do not think they spent up to. My mother didn't spend up to. Look, it's even embarrassing considering today's numbers to even mention how much my school fees was in my final year. It was ridiculous. My tuition, I think for my final year, my tuition was like 45K or something like that. And it was supposed to be, the most important year, My goodness. Rotimi, would you like to add anything? Is there anything that you feel like you can chip in to address everything that she said?
So so Anna has spoken to today's parents, so people, guys like you, the two-year-old children, and so I'm just asking if you had and you talked about dollar investment, Ibrahim. So if you look at the exchange rate to then ask yourself, if you started to invest $100 on a monthly basis in the last, let's say, 20 years, 15 years on a monthly basis, and then multiply the difference between what it was then and what it is now, you would see clearly that, yes, the best time that you should have started was way, way longer. So I'm also asking myself, so imagine if I've been able to do that, to now be able to beat the exchange rate that is close to 500, depending on the market that you are speaking to. So Anna has also said you need to start now. Now, before you know what's happening, exchange rate is not going to remain at today's level. There's every probability that it has only one direction. All of us know that direction. So it's then important that you start to take advantages of the products that are available. And I'd mentioned them. I'd like to also just speak to the fact that you can get dollar-denominated instruments at FBN Quest that you can put your money into. And in another 5, 10, 15, 20 years, when it then becomes important to start to withdraw or make those payments, make those school fees payments, you are home and dry, and you've done everything that you need to do for the education of your children.
Thank you, Rotimi. So I'm glad that we're talking about foreign currency, because I'm not going to lie, a lot of the time when I've tried in the past to get involved in putting money away in foreign currency, it just feels like there's so many complicated steps. There's just, you have to do this, you have to get that, you have to be able to route this through that. It's stressful, How does one know which options to choose? Because there are a lot of options, there's a lot of complication. What are the best ways to figure out what options to choose?
Okay.
Sorry, I think Laura, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Yes, please.
Yes. All right. So I think, I'll take this one. In terms of what you choose when you're thinking of foreign, FX investments, I liked where Rotimi ended off in saying that many of us are Naira earners. And so it's very important that really at whatever point you're at, whatever point in time we're at, whatever the exchange rate is, no matter how painful it feels, if you desire that your children be educated abroad, just take the pain and take the exchange rate and create a plan where you are converting money to your desired foreign currency, just whatever the interest rate, so whatever the exchange rate is. It would always feel painful. And I think, I've come to learn, because many times, someone will say, oh, but the official rate is this, and then, the black market is that, or, whatever it is. People often feel that whatever the exchange rate is today, it often feels too high or too punitive to convert. So I say, what I say is just bite the bullet and convert, because you are doing it for a larger goal in, say, 10 years, whatever, 15 years, and so on and so forth. When determining what to choose, like you said, Ibrahim, there's so many foreign currency investments, like Rotimi has mentioned, Anne has mentioned. Even within FBN Quest, we have a number of dollar-denominated products. So you can talk about our dollar mutual fund, and there are other dollar products. So there is no shortage of instruments when you move into foreign currency. When determining what you do, what to do or what to choose, I will lean on what Rotimi said earlier when he talked about knowing yourself and knowing your investments and knowing your markets. I really like that. And those three things are things I actually wrote down because it is so important when choosing what to do and what to do next. What I will say is there are so many investment options. They have different risk profiles, and that's very important. They have different potentials for, potential for gains or losses, etc. You want to determine how far in the future these expenses will be. So if you have a young child and you're thinking that you will send your child to university abroad in 15 years, then that person is in a very different situation to someone who has a 15-year-old who is going abroad next. And so the investment options for those two individuals are very, very different. One person has a longer term horizon. And so depending on your personal risk tolerance, can potentially invest in, US equities, various, dollar bond funds that are riskier, and so on and so forth. Whereas, to be honest, the person who is sending their child to school next year already needs to really be ensuring they have the dollars, in a liquid investment that is safe. Because the last thing you want is to take your children's school fees, you say the $40,000, $50,000 that you've managed to save, and then you put it into some risky investment because you've heard it will double your money in a year. And then, then there are stories, and so we're all off. So what I will say is, if you have a long-term horizon, you can begin to, based on your risk tolerance, you can begin to invest or think about riskier investments. And there's so many, because you have the time to allow these investments to perform. But obviously that's not advice if you have expenses coming up very, very shortly. And so in terms of what to choose, I would say that your time horizon, how much, how long you have to save, and frankly, who you are as a person, how risky how risky you are as a person are probably two of the things that you need to know about yourself when determining what to do next. And again, working with a financial planner, like a financial firm like ours, will really help you in clarifying those things for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. So it is important to just bite the bullet and know that regardless of what time of the year, the exchange rates will still hurt regardless. And then also just have it at the back of your mind that, look, whatever your risk appetite is, try and make sure that, it's not over the top, because children are involved, their futures are involved, and all of that. Thank you so much, Laura. Rotimi, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Ibrahim, if you permit me, I'll speak to the things I think you should not do. And one of them is that you should not be greedy. So where you hear people saying that they have investments that will give you a return of 50% in 2 weeks' time, that is something you should not do. Particularly if you are going to take your life savings, what you've saved for your children, and you are going to put it into that pot. It is important that you stay focused. Like Laura said, it's important that you speak to professional money managers, people that have experience, and talked about the number of years, or when you read Anne's profile, you could see the number of years she spent just trying to first understand the market and become a professional in that market. It's not easy to have a 30-year-old child in a room and don't understand how it is for that child to be able to work. So if you combine an experience, you combine Laura's experience, and you add my only 2 experience, by the time we start to tell you that do not invest in an instrument where you're expecting 100% return next month, then you need to take us seriously. Anna talked about compounding. It's important that you understand that if you invest 5,000 naira today in any of our products, it's important to know that 5,000 naira becomes, for example, 5,100 naira tomorrow, and next tomorrow it becomes 5,200 naira. After next tomorrow it becomes 5,300 naira. So building your wealth steadily and ensuring that you climb slowly but get to your destination is more important for us at FBN Quest, and that's what we preach and that's what we teach.
Thank you so much, Rotimi. We've talked so much about the importance of trying to figure out how to save in foreign currency, all of that. But I do have friends who insist that because of the way the world is today, they have no plans whatsoever of having their children have their tertiary education outside of the country. So a particular friend of mine says that what she plans to do is make sure that all her kids are well educated right in front of her here in Nigeria, up until they get their first degrees. Then whatever it is that they decide to do after that for their postgraduate or for their master's programs and all of that, they can decide to work a little, save a little, and then head out to do that. So yes, that's the plan that this friend of mine has. So for someone like her now, she'll be interested in saving in Nigerian Naira. What are the options that she has? I know that most people just idealistically most want to send their kids abroad, but Anne, if you could help this friend of mine with figuring this out, it would be great. Her options when she plans to have her kids educated here in Nigeria.
Okay, thanks. And I think that's actually a very, very simple, what should I say, problem to solve, because there are so many options to invest in. But to keep it simple, because she's asking questions, I'd align with the information we've shared so far, where you have to take into consideration the amount of time you have to invest, and that would guide you into the amount of risk you can take. High risk, high potential return, but it's potential for a couple of reasons. High risk also, you can lose a lot of money in the process. But the good thing about the financial sector is that everything goes in a cycle. So even if, you lose value, the value would still go up as long as you're working with, investment advisors that put you in the right investments in the first place. So when you have a long time, if you're looking, like you, for instance, Ibrahim, if you're thinking about your child's university education in Nigeria, you have a long time to invest. So you can take a bit of risk if you can afford to tolerate that, knowing that even if in the short term, for instance, you invest in equity, and you don't need to invest in what you're not comfortable with. You can invest in a mutual fund that has equity exposure. We have quite a few. We have the balance fund that has less equity, and the smart beta fund that is more heavy on equity. You can invest in those sort of funds where you have experts who are studying the markets and understanding the risk and managing the risk on your behalf, but you're still getting the benefits. Those two funds now are returning in excess of 12%, regardless of the little amount that you can enter with as little as 50,000 naira, you can invest in those. And so for your long-term investments, you can take a bit more risk if you can tolerate it, though, because some people just can't deal with it at all, but you can afford to take a bit more risk. For the medium term, you can then, if it's not too long, maybe your child is going to uni in another 5-6 years, you can take a bit less risk. We have the bond funds, and those are very, very decent returns you can get from those sorts of investments. And then for the short term, for people like me, I'm looking at a 1-year horizon max, to start to pay those fees. You put your money in sort of money market type instruments, because you have to start paying fees very soon, and you don't want to hear any story about, the cycle is going in this direction. You just have a heart attack, And so it's important to look at your horizon and your own risk appetite and then choose to invest. But the truth is, whatever horizon you have, reputable firms like ours, and any others that you're comfortable with, would have the options for the short, the medium, and the long-term investments. And so, just look at your situation and plan. And then I saw a couple of people who had children in different ages. And so the truth is that you would have to have things in buckets, right? So you'd have the long-term ones in the long-term bucket, the medium-term, the medium bucket, and the short-term ones in the short-term buckets. Because you can't use one strategy for kids who are spanning over a 10-year age period, so that you'd be able to meet all your requirements. So it's just about that. You don't need to worry too much about the details, because we offer advisory services. And so when you're ready, which, as we've discussed, should be this week, because the best time to start investing is now, please, please contact us, and we speak to you about the products, the pros and cons, and guide you on what buckets you need to invest in and the best way to approach that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so we would have to speed up a little, because we're a bit, that's the problem with learning new things. You just forget that, when you're running out of time. So what we're going to do is we'll probably not be able to take, all the questions that we have. So, but real quick, so one of the things that we do not, as a culture, one of the things that we do not like to talk about, so one of the most difficult conversations is in case of, if something goes wrong, you lose your job, someone passes away or is badly injured and they cannot continue to function or work, at jobs that they normally would. What's the plan? Rotimi, how can this be sorted? What options do people have? when suddenly find themselves in this sort of situation where they can no longer work as they used to, or someone who is the breadwinner passes away suddenly, what can be done?
Okay, Ibrahim, let me speak to the aspect that relates to incapacitation or death, because that's where people really do not want to start to have these conversations. And so for us at FBN Quest, what would essentially ask you to do is set up an estate plan. An estate plan would then lead you to creating a trust arrangement. Now, with a trust arrangement, you're sure that school fees will be paid for your children, whether you're there or not, once you have created that trust. Now, with a trust arrangement, the trustee pays directly to the school. So if anything were to happen to you or your spouse or both of you, depending, the dependence on family members is completely taken care of, because the trust then kicks in. The trust, if you want it in your lifetime, the trust starts to pay directly to the school. And so we generally advise people, set up an education trust for your child or your children, such that the education can take care of welfare, can take care of transportation, can take care of any single thing you define as education or education-related expenses. It's important that you have that, because it takes care of incapacitation and it takes care of death, such that the trustee is responsible for ensuring that your child continues to go to school based on the funds that you have used in creating the trust arrangement.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rotimi. And because I know that you have quite a head start on the rest of us when it comes to this journey. So if you could go back in time, what would you do differently in setting up, a trust fund for your offspring?
A trust fund in particular?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, not a trust fund in particular, but planning financially, for their education, for their upkeep, basically, just planning financially for them. What would you do differently from what you've done so far?
Okay, so what I do differently is to review. I would have set the review sessions, and that's why I spoke about it, because I had to learn the hard way about that, about setting the review sessions, because sometimes we go for sessions this.
Sorry, can I ask?
Yeah.
So what when you say review sessions, what do you mean?
Where you revisit your goal and see, I want to get from A to B. I want to get this child into Harvard, for instance, which I've recommended for your son. And, when I started planning 10 years ago, the school fees for Harvard was this, dollar exchange rates was this, my earnings was this, right? Sometimes we start off well, and then we feel like, I have this sorted. Let me focus on the house. Let me focus on, but things are changing. Factors are changing every day. The exchange rate is moving. Your earnings are moving in whichever direction. You could be earning more and you're not using the additional income as effectively as you should be. You could be earning less, where you'd have to revisit and find a way to reprioritize your expenses, and of course the fees themselves are moving as well. And so you really have to look at these on a regular basis. You have to pre-plan, and it's best to do that if you are married with your spouse. So, everybody is able to contribute whatever they can to the process. And so I'd say that is one thing that is really, really important that I would have preferred to do if I was able to go back. And the second thing I'd say I would have liked to do was to start a bit earlier. To think about the large picture. I think I was sort of just focusing on the immediate educational goals. I wasn't, looking too far off initially. But luckily, as I got into the whole process of being a financial advisor, I started to see very quickly, and I had started to, remediate it. But I just feel like if I'd started earlier, I wouldn't be having to take out so much today. Right now, it's I won't need, because the compounding would have worked in my favor. Can you imagine the exchange rate I would have bought all my dollars at? So it would have made life so much easier. But like I said, if you haven't, start now. But if you're in a position where you can start early, and make sure that you review. Don't just say, oh, I've started, and you leave it alone. No, you have to review. Review the changes in your circumstances and in your goal. I think those two things are what I'd say I would have done differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's such a wholesome response. Rotimi, are there, like, for your reviews, right? How often do you suggest that people review, the plan? Do you suggest every quarter, every year, every couple of years? What do you think?
I would say there are basically two buckets that you should look at. And number one bucket is the fact that, okay, so I have set this goal that you can review annually, financially speaking, about the financial part. And by the time you look at your savings, you look at your investing, then you then compare to inflation and compare to how much you're going to pay as school fees. Now, like I had said, in Nigeria, school fees increase anywhere between 10% to 12% on an annual basis, and 5 to 6% abroad. Now, if you factor exchange rate, then you then know that, yes, it's much higher than even the 5 to 6% that we are talking about. So have your reviews done on your investment part on a quarterly basis. You can then decide not to take a drastic decision because you know that you have short, medium, and long-term goals in terms of your investments. However, when it comes to schooling, you can then decide that I want to be able to do that every 2 years or every 3 years or every 4 years, so that I'm able to match. One thing I never do is compare myself to other people. So if it's a project I cannot take, I just tell myself that I cannot take it. So my advice would be that you do it depending on your investment, quarterly or annually or every 2 to 3 years.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Which is, and I fully agree with you. Personally, I do not, peer pressure doesn't get to me. Whatever I feel like is not important or necessary or immediate, I tend to just be like, whoa, everybody's journey is different. Like, we'll all get to where we're supposed to get to, eventually. So which brings me to, this one is a personal question, right? And I think I want Laura to go first on this one. So we've talked about, if you're planning to send your kids to school abroad, how you can start saving foreign currency, how you can start to plan properly. If you want to do it in Nigeria, we've explored some options for these things. So all we've done is focus on, the children, their education, their future. When in my mind right now, it just feels like, okay, Ibro, there's a plan. Focus on saving for Kion's future, blah, 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 blah. But before he arrived, there's this fine girl that, I convinced to spend the rest of her life with me. I'm used to, making her feel special from time to time, take her out, go on a vacation, surprise her with this or that. I would like to buy her a house. If we now put all this money into planning for Kion's education and all of that, how do I also plan? Can it be parallel? Can I plan towards getting her that house, making sure she goes on vacation, once or twice a year? How do I go about this thing? Laura is laughing at me. My dear, look, gotta keep it fresh,
No, so to be honest, when you say can it be parallel, it should be parallel. I'm not sure there's any other way, it can be, right?
Okay.
To be honest, investing for me is about planning for the future you want, not the future that's thrust upon you by circumstances and everything. It really is around just letting your money work for you. So yes, it's important to save for education. But to be honest, I saw something in the comments box. Someone made a comment that, don't forget to save for the house, because frankly, even the children need a house. The child that's going to school must go to school from somewhere, right? So the house is important. Holidays are important. There's so many things that are important as well. So those things really should be parallel. I will lean on something that Anne said when she started speaking. I think it was almost her answer to the first or second question. And it's something that we also do in our house, which is around saving first, right? What we do is that we determine an amount of money we plan to save monthly. like that amount is predetermined. And so once we've paid our monthly bills, etc., we take out that amount. And anything that's left is what, we use for groceries or, the enjoyment for the month. You want to have dinners or whatever it is, or etc. That really helps focus the mind, because like Anne said, if you choose to save at the end of the month, you will find that there's nothing to save. If you say, you know what, when we're done, whatever's left, I'll save it. There'll never be anything left, or there'll be nothing substantial. But if you say to myself, look, I have a goal where I want to save 500,000 a month, 1 million a month, 100,000 a month, whatever that number is. And I think it's good for that number to be challenging, so that you don't sort of, Ibrahim, if someone like you tells me that your goal is 50,000 naira a month, I'll be like, what are you doing? Because I'm sure someone like you can plan to save like 1 million naira a month or 5 million a month.
Amen.
So the thing is, your monthly goal has to be challenging. Yes, it has to be challenging, because again, as you say, there are other things that you want to save for. You want to buy a house. Perhaps you want to go and buy that Ferrari or something. There's so many things that you want to do, that yacht. There's so many things that you want to do with your life, right? So, you can, just like we're talking about creating an investment plan for your child, you can create one for a house. You can say, look, this is my fund for buying a house. I want to buy a house in X number of years. And, if you're in Nigeria, as we're in Nigeria, we don't really have much of a credit system. So you probably have to raise a lot of the cash. So you're saying, I want to buy a house that's worth, that house in Banana Island, that's, 500 million, I want to buy it in 2 years' time. So you can sort of space that out on a monthly basis. You know how much you save on a monthly basis to get there. And then, you have Kion's education. Then you say you also want to buy that yacht. You want to go on that holiday. So things you can really, in your mind and frankly, even on paper, you can separate out these other expenses. But what I will say is, whether you have, whether you're earning a regular monthly income, like in corporate employment, or, if you're an entrepreneur where you have lumpy income, it is so important for you to, once you get that money, however frequently it comes, create for yourself a challenging investment or investment saving goal, where you say, once I've paid my bills, house staff, or whatever it is, whatever it is that you pay on a monthly basis, you save that amount, and that amount should ideally be challenging. You put that out and you move it out of your account altogether, so you don't even see it. And then whatever is left is what you then use for your monthly groceries or monthly clubbing or whatever it is that you do on a monthly basis. And I think that for me is really the most important thing that you can do. You can create as many plans as you like, but we must challenge ourselves to put money aside on a monthly basis or on a periodic basis, whatever that is, to ensure that all those other things that you want to do, you can do them. Again, like I said, it's really around creating that future that you want, right? Not the future that's just thrust upon you because there have been new circumstances, etc.
Thank you. Because life will happen regardless.
Exactly.
Life will continue to happen to you, at you, around you. So you must share. Rotimi looks like he has something to say. I'm worried already.
No, Ibrahim, you don't need to be worried. So when we were growing up, there was this fantastic advert that we fell in love with. And the advert was just very simple. It asked us not to eat our future today and to plan for it. So that fantastic advert, don't eat your future today. So I know you need to go on vacation. I know you need to go clubbing. You need to eat every Saturday out of the house or every weekend. However, my one counsel is, do not eat your future today.
Good man. Thank you. Thank you so much. So having satisfied my own personal question, I think it is time for us just quickly. I've compounded some of the questions that have popped up in the chat room. So I'm going to take a few before we head out. So the first one here says, what will be the motivation to carry on saving when your current earning cannot help you achieve the educational target for your children? Did we do who wants to go for that?
Okay, so can I quickly say,
okay.
Sorry, just let me quickly say that the truth really is that if you earn 5,000 or if you earn 10,000 and you don't save 2,000, if you then earn 100,000, you will not be able to save 20,000. If you earn 1,000,000, you will not be able to save 200,000. That is the basic simple rule. So the earlier you start to keep little amounts of money, maybe you start with your colo, and by the time you are able to keep 5,000 naira there, pull it out, send it to Laura or send it to Anne, and ask them to create a mutual fund for you. You have already started on the journey of investing. Anne, please take it over.
So I also wanted to add the fact that during your review, your financial review sessions, you'd have to be a bit realistic about what can happen and have your plans A and B. I mean, for instance, for me, I have a child who's going into uni next year, and we've laid out the cards on, okay, so we can afford this. With a scholarship, you can afford this. And so, look at the options, rationalize them and make it clear. You have your plan A, plan B, any which way you get a good education, but, you have to sit down and rationalize what is possible.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I want to just add a final point. When I saw that question, it really spoke to me because I think, as parents, the plans that we have for our children are naturally aspirational. So most people cannot afford all the lovely things and all the plans that they want for their children. So the person who asked the question is really not in the you're not in a minority. Most people, and which is, if you look at the results of the poll, most people are in that bucket where we have these grand plans for our children, but we worry that we can't afford them. And that's just what being a parent is about. And that really is why the planning comes into play, because you can only do the best that you can. If you plan, you put the money aside. If, as it turns out, when the time comes, a child can't afford to go to the, your first choice, greatly aspirational school, at least you will know that you have done the best that you can. And like Anne said, you can talk about scholarships and other things like that, perhaps to augment the cost. But the main lesson really is that most of us have aspirational plans for our children. That really is what parenting is about. We all aspire for more than we have, and perhaps more than our parents gave us. You keep paying it forward. So the person who asked the question is really not. You're not in the minority. I think we all feel
exactly.
That.
Exactly. That's how I feel. I feel like with what I'm earning, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have gotten in my life and, the things that I've achieved so far. So I know that I am blessed, but because of where I want to get to, because of the things that I want for Keon, I still feel like a lot more still has to come in before I can achieve, the goals that I've set on his behalf. So thank you for that, So, Ekachi, one more. You're not alone, sir or ma'am. We're plenty, but we're together. We'll do this. So the next question is from another Ekachi. Ekachi Imo says, "Good afternoon, Anne." So Anne, this is directed at you. Please, I joined the session late due to a meeting I was attending. I want to know the investment one can go into. I want to know the investments that one can go into and their cost range. I think this person is asking about the different instruments that are available to them.
Okay, so I'll just simplify it by going with the mutual funds, the ones that are managed by experts, so they don't need to worry too much about the markets and all those information. And I'd break them into the brackets. I'd say the time brackets, the short term, the medium term, and the long term. So for the short term, you can invest in money market instruments or money market mutual funds. If you're thinking of FBN Quest in particular, a money market fund, you can start with at least as little as 5,000 naira. And the idea is you still enjoy the same sort of returns as whoever has invested 1 billion naira in those funds. medium term, more bond funds like. And the good thing is we have the bond fund, which is regular, you can earn in excess of 10%. We have the dollar bond fund, which is yielding over 5% at the moment, which I think is very impressive on foreign currency compared to what you can earn if you invest abroad. And we have the ethical fund, a halal fund. And so even if you're particular about investing ethically, we have the solutions for you. That's more medium term. Then for the longer term, we have the higher risk investments, which are properly managed as well. So you don't have to worry too much. If you work with a planner, you'd make the right decisions. And we have the smart beta equity fund. And we also have, just in case you're like, I don't want to go fully into equity, can I just go halfway? We have the balanced fund, which is what it is, it's balanced. It has the equity, it has money market, it has the bond instruments in them or assets in them. And so whatever it is you're looking for, since we're talking school fees, I speak with that. If your goal is for now, you can do the money market. If your goal is for next 5 years or more, you can do the bonds, whether in Naira or in dollars. And if you want long-term investments, you can do the more equity type investments, but we have solutions. These are just a few of our solutions. I don't want to overwhelm you, so I just want to talk about the basic ones. Then of course, we have the Education Endowment Fund, which is strictly for education. And that has both insurance, investments, and trusts in it. So it's like a one-stop shop for everything you want towards your child's education. Thank you.
Awesome. I had no idea that there was such a thing as the halal investment. That is incredible, because I've actually had a conversation with someone in Abuja, and he was worried about, where, the things that his money would be invested in. So another friend of ours was telling him that, if you're not investing it yourself directly, then the sin is not on you. And then he was adamant about it. He was like, no, I need to know what they're doing. And it all was just purely from a point of, is it ethical? Is it proper? Are they putting it into products that are detrimental to the society morally, or even the environment? So I'm glad that, there's that. That's amazing. Like that for me, right? Today, that is like the most, wow. Okay. Moving on quickly, we don't have time. So Bamidele Obenje says that how often do customers receive their statements if they open child education plans, trusts, etc., with FBN trustees? So I think this person wants to know how often they can get a quick check on what's going on,
Bamidele, so if you open an education trust with FBN Quest trustees, you should have access to an online platform where you can view your statement on the go. Apart from that, you can also ask your relationship manager to send you your account statement. So you can use both platforms to be able to assess your account, see what you have there, see the returns, the interest that the fund is giving to you. So you have the opportunity to view, to see. You also have the opportunity to ask for from your relationship manager a statement of account that will be sent to you immediately. You do that.
Awesome. So this person, none of us have to go to a branch to do all of that. We can just check on this on our own. Fantastic. Rotimi, this one is also directed at you. So the person said, Rotimi, that's how the person actually wrote it. So Rotimi, to also add how an estate plan can, okay, so this person is asking about self-employed people, people who are not on a salary, who do not have a regular 9 to 5, so that what are their options?
Now, so for those people that are not self-employed, the truth is that you earn money, maybe not as frequently as those of us that are self-employed. The other bit is that you earn at times more than those of us that have regular income. Now, everything revolves around planning. What do you do with the resources when they hit your account? It's important that you set out a goal, a plan. For some of us, and just to add to what Ibrahim, the question he asked earlier, because you've not earned money for, like, for example, 3 months, you then hit a jackpot, you get a contract of 10 million. The first thing you want to do is give yourself a treat. And before you know, you have spent 2.5 million giving yourself a treat. 2.5 million that you would have given to me to invest in an education trust for you, or given to Anne to invest in a mutual fund. You have blown it because you needed to first take care of yourself. So it's important, set a plan, set a goal, be focused, know what you want to do every single time that transfer, that alert hits your account. The truth is, you can do it. You can start a plan, you can start a scheme, whether it's a trust arrangement or a mutual fund, that will help you achieve your long-term goals.
So I'll just act like Ruth Me didn't just attack me, but it is well. It's fine, it's fine. No problem, no problem. It's okay, it's okay. Until I finish getting what I want from you. All the advice, the mere you will fight. For now, whatever you say, I mean, take it. Drag me, feel free. Someone said, okay, so our next question, anonymous attendee says, does it mean that the Naira does not have any prospect of appreciating when Rotimi said that the US dollar has only one direction? But I don't know why Rotimi is not. It's you, Rotimi, that said.
Yeah, so Ibrahim, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the Naira has only one direction. And if you ask before my generation, I think that the Naira to the dollar was less than 1 Naira. Then it got to 1 Naira. 5 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, it was like 200 Naira to a dollar. Today, we are struggling at 500. So the chart is there, the graph is there, and I will not deceive you. We were taught when we came into investing that there's no use beating the numbers. There's no use giving you false data or false statistics. In the long run, the Naira has one direction. But again, let me just close on the lighter note. If you can pray and ask God to bring it down, it's going to benefit all of us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotimi. Oh my goodness, and thank you so much. Look, I've had an amazing time learning from you three superb human beings. You guys, thank you. You made this seem less like a lecture and more like an actual hangout. Thank you so much, and for every one of our attendees, you guys, you're spectacular for sending your questions. Unfortunately, we cannot take all these questions, but on our socials, you can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn at FBN Quest. So all of the questions that we couldn't take today, they will be answered on our socials. I would even tweet some of the answers that I find. I will hound these 3 awesome people and get the answers to the questions that we couldn't take here. And I will tweet all those. You can follow me at EDOMALO on Twitter. I'm more active on Twitter because that's where I can share my thoughts. So please just follow the follow at FBN Quest, and whenever it is that you tweet, I will retweet so that you can see it. Thank you so much. It has been an amazing time. This edition of Leading Conversations with FBN Quest focused on investing and planning for the future of our children. It is important, and I'm glad that all of us who came here today came ready to learn, and we had a few laughs along the way. And thank you, my panelists. You guys are the best. I mean, I've been doing stuff like this for a while, but I've really enjoyed working with the 3 of you. And when we come to the office, I'm coming with Linda. So if people want to attack, don't attack only me, attack her too, because the 2 of us, they do this matter together. Thank you so much for having me. It's been quite an honor. And I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope that I'm able to have a conversation with you guys again. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
you.